Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Enablement Brew podcast. I'm Carly Lehner.
And I'm Malvina and thank you so much for joining us for yet another episode.
Yeah, we have a guest today. We are bringing on lots of guests in the next couple episodes. So we had Aaron Evans last week, and this week we have Tom Cheriyan. So Tom, you want to introduce yourself and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Tom Cheriyan. I was previously at Own Backup for almost 3 years, running all things sales enablement in the sales enablement team. Prior to that, over 10 plus years of enterprise sales experience working for really great logos like Gartner, Yelp, Simply Learn, and the like. On top of that, I'm also an adjunct professor at the City College of New York. So I teach 2 graduate courses, 1 undergrad course. And then if I have any time in between, I am the girl dad of a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Uh, I can relate. I have a 3 and a 7-year-old. Yes, yes. One of them is at home with me now. But welcome to the Enablement Brew. So, as is tradition, what are you drinking?
Coffee. Instant coffee.
Instant? No,
Instant. Yeah.
Tom.
I do instant too.
Look, I'm gonna own it. Nescafe all the way. It's like $10 at Costco. I know, but it's great. It's just like,
Efficient, I guess. That
yeah.
is the thing that when I moved to England, I could not understand why instant coffee was like such a
Really?
prevalent thing. I had no idea. Because the only instant coffee I really knew was Starbucks Via when that came out. I was working at Starbucks at the time. I thought it was like, oh, this makes sense. It's like coffee on the go. Obviously, there was instant coffee before then, but always had a bad kind of reputation and came to England and it's literally everywhere. Instant coffee. And I haven't gotten on board with it.
I grew up
So
on instant coffee. Like that's what my parents had in their house. And I mean, all those times that I'm telling you I'm drinking coffee, Carly, it is instant coffee that I'm drinking. 24 episodes in.
nice. No, Malvina,
See?
you need an espresso.
It might be a cultural thing because I was born here in Queens, actually, grew up in Long Island. My parents are from India, but like at least with the Indian community, the Indians I know, like it's always instant coffee. Like that's the
Hmm.
default. Nobody is brewing fresh beans and doing drip coffee in their home. Some are, but I think most will default to instant coffee.
And I have to ask, because I heard Queens, I grew up in Queens as well. Where in Queens did you grow up?
Born in Astoria, so like right by the beer garden, if you know where that is.
Hmm.
But then probably when I was 7 or 8, parents moved on up to the east side, which is Long Island. So I grew up in New Hyde Park.
I grew
And
up
now
in
I'm in Westchester, New York.
Nice, 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 nice. I'm Fresh Meadows and Flushing, that area.
Okay. Yeah, I was born in Flushing Meadows Hospital,
There you go.
but I think that hospital went bankrupt.
Healthcare in America, everyone, for our
Yes.
international listeners. So yes, I'm drinking tea, basically one cup a day of coffee and then on to tea for the rest of the day. And it's like ungodly how much tea I have. Um, but yeah, I'm just sticking with the tea today.
I'm on tea as well, actually. Like, I wish they made bigger mugs because I hate going down to the kitchen to refill after like 20 minutes. But yes, it's tea, it's cold, but I still love
You
it.
have to get a Sports Direct mug. Do you have one of those?
I do, but
Yeah,
I
see, those are like those
breakfast.
huge mugs. Yeah, Sports Direct. It's like a cultural, that's like a definite British cultural thing,
Yes, that
right?
is. That is.
The
It's like
cheap
the
Sports
mug you
Direct
give
mug.
to your builders when they come. The
Yeah,
builder mug.
builder's mug.
Right.
So for this episode, we are talking about a topic that's not super fun, and we've actually kind of talked about this on the show before. So a couple episodes ago, Malvina and I talked about why you should not lay off enablement when companies are going through these layoffs because you still need to generate revenue and you probably have a smaller team, and enablement is a really great team to get more out of your existing team. But unfortunately, there's tons of companies out there that did not hear our episode. And a lot of people in enablement and outside of enablement are finding themselves on the unfortunate side of a layoff. And actually, our previous guest on the show was Aaron Evans. And Tom, I know you know him as well. He posted a really great post on LinkedIn that, and it's just the tip of the iceberg for enablement. And there's probably a lot more that we're going to see happen with either reduced headcount, reduced budgets. And so we're not out of the woods yet. And so we're going to talk about what happens if you find yourself on that side of a layoff.
Yeah, it's not fun.
It's not fun. So yeah, Tom, you want to share your story?
Um, I mean, look, so previously worked for Own Backup and they had to make some tough decisions. So myself and probably about, 150, 200 plus folks were laid off. Um, and again, no animosity. I think it's really easy to feel like angry or upset, but I'm actually just, again, super thankful for the opportunity because when I started at Own Backup, and I think for most people in sales enablement, like I was a team of one. And it was just a mess everywhere from an enablement standpoint. No foundations, no infrastructure. I told my boss at the time when I started at Own Backup, and I love telling the story. They had me start on the first day of boot camp. And at the end of boot camp, I told my boss at the time, like, you hired me to own this thing called sales enablement, but I have to tell you, at the end of this boot camp program that that you all created, I have to say I feel dumber coming through it. I still don't know the pitch. I don't know the product. I don't know our process. And if I was actually hired as a sales rep and I was expected to pitch and sell this come Monday, like I'm telling you right now, just with my years of experience, I can't fake it. I'm absolutely screwed. And he's like, Tom, I hear you, but don't leave, don't go. This is your baby. You have full authority and control. Build this the way it needs to be built. So that's what I did. And I took on the philosophy and approach like, is this good enough for me as a sales rep where I can, take the training, take the content, take the process and absolutely run with it. And I did. But now I have all this experience and skill set. So to be able to transfer that to another potential future employer, but it's nothing but good things. And I think for all of our peers in enablement, whether you have been laid off or you feel like you might be laid off, because I get it, right? Like we can be seen as an expense. There is that aspect of ROI or attribution to revenue, which is really hard to calculate. How do you put a value on our role? How do you put a value on our impact? For me, I think it's quite easy, but for others, especially if you're like the CFO or someone in HR, like it's a little bit more difficult because you're not seeing it outside of just maybe the expense of our income and the other types of expenses maybe sales enablement needs in order to drive a really awesome program or multiple programs. But we can go in a lot of different tangents. So where should we go first?
Can we talk feelings for a second? I always feel like
Yeah.
everyone approaches this, these situations like very logically, and I love that logical thinking and looking at the big picture. But let's talk feelings because obviously it's a real
Let's talk feelings.
it impacts your life. It impacts many facets of your life or other individuals out there. When you found out that this was happening, what was the first thing going through your mind? Swear words are okay on this show.
Then, first of all, thank you, because I think Carly knows I love to swear, especially when I'm doing events and conferences, and actually how I ran like every single training at Own Backup. But yeah, I think the first thing I felt like this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
right? And I think maybe that's the best way to put it. It just fucking sucks, right? You like, at least for me, I put in my heart and soul into it, and to get pushed out, it just sucks.
Yeah.
So I think someone else told me this because uh a lot of people were obviously going through the same feeling at the same time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had to go through like the 5 stages of grief, right? And I forgot what they are, but I think we all learned this in high school or college. But it does feel like as if you died or someone close to you died, right? Like the family you were part of, it's like now it's a divorce, and you're no longer associated with that family. So yeah, it sucks.
And then the Queen's streak comes out as well at some point during those stages of grief, right? Um, I'm just thinking, you've mentioned, the process you built out, the trainings you put together, right? I'm thinking like, I did all that and that's it, right? You can almost feel like you've put so much heart and soul into something only to feel like, okay, well, now it's there. And that's the end of the journey, right? And somewhere in all of our minds, that's always a fear, whether you're in a role or you're outside of a role. It's like, I do all this, and then what happens when it's built out and things are working and things are running smoothly and there is a process and AEs do know the pitch after that boot camp. What next? Right. And it's that fear as well.
So look, so I think there's like two ways to think about it or feel about it. So yeah, you can feel like, holy crap, I built all this stuff, all this great content, all this great process, the playbooks, the trainings, the modules, the onboarding, the everboarding, the ramp guides. Like, I mean, I could keep going on and on,
Yeah.
right? And
All
feel
of the
like, holy,
content.
holy crap, like now they get to
Right
take
on
advantage
it.
of this and leverage this. The other feeling, which I think is maybe the right way or the logical way to think about it, is you no matter what role you're in, like you want to be able to build something, clearly a machine where you can go on vacation for a month and it runs itself.
Hmm.
My vacation's a lot longer, but the fact that they can make that strategic decision to let me go, and the machine will keep on running. I think says a lot about the machine and what I
Yeah.
built and what my peers have built, right? If you're the linchpin and everything can only work because you're there, in my opinion, I think you're building something wrong, right? The fact that you can step away or leave, and that would, obviously it's going to cause some disruption. I'm not saying it's not, but the fact that it's minimal in nature, right? Like people can still find the content, people can still find the assets, the team I built that's still there, they can still leverage the process and the playbooks and everything else and keep the machine going, I think speaks volumes in terms of the enablement machine that was built. So I think that's
Yeah.
that's what I'm proud of, right? Like the legacy I'm leaving behind and the fact that it like no one has to come in and just like rip it away and like rebuild it from scratch. It's like, no, it's great and we're just going to continue to evolve it. I mean, that says a lot. So that's what I'm happy about.
Yeah. I mean, to quote Taylor Swift's latest album, that's a real fucking legacy to leave. So I
Ah,
think that's a really healthy way to look at it, Tom, because I mean, the great thing is I think a lot of people in the enablement world know how amazing of a program that you built at Own Backup. And so that's going to be amazing resume building experience for you to say like, hey, like I can build this for you at this next company or whatever. And so to see something work, it just makes like the next job a little bit easier because
yeah.
you have that experience.
I think most companies don't think about this, but a solid sales enablement program is absolutely a differentiator when you're trying to attract or retain like your top employees.
Absolutely.
And it's absolutely a huge selling point. So yeah, when you see the post that I did on LinkedIn, and I think a bunch of it's obviously still saved on my profile, if you find it, of all of the like in-person boot camps, like having people stand and deliver, the just the overall experience that's created when people walk away from boot camp and especially from onboarding and they're like, holy crap, your program was better than what I experienced at Dell, at Salesforce, at Oracle. I mean, and I still take that with a grain of salt. Like, are you really saying what I built was better than what Salesforce did? And we hired a lot of people from Salesforce, and they're like, yeah, Tom. And I'm like, fuck, I built this thing with a shoestring budget, but amazing. I'll take that
Yeah,
kudos
we'll
and
take that.
compliments all day long. Yeah.
Put that in the kudos folder.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to since the news, and what sort of advice would you give to people who are in the same position or fear they might be in the same position?
So look, like when you get laid off, I'll say it again, it just sucks, right? And your mental health, I think, is like your top priority, right? Because you're up here, and then when you're laid off or let go or fired or whatever, like you're immediately on the bottom of that spectrum. And I was there. So I think like what was really important to me, especially like the first week or two, like I logged out of LinkedIn. I just
Yeah.
made it a point to like be like in tune with myself, with my kids, with my wife. I think it's really awesome and important to have like a support system. Like for me, it's my partner, my wife. For others, right? Whether you're married or single, like it's your friends, it's your family, it's everyone that's important to you in your circle. It could even be like former colleagues or current colleagues from your employer, right? So I leveraged everyone, right? Just to take it easy, take a breather. Like again, the 5 stages of grief are real, and you have to go through it and you have to process it. So the first thing for me that was really important, and I would definitely recommend this as part of everyone's like laid off enablement training. Like you just have to focus on yourself and be and realize like your mental health is what's important first. So just take a break, take it easy. It's okay. Like you shouldn't just immediately start trying to apply for LinkedIn jobs or whatever. Just be mindful and meditate or whatever. But I think that's really important. And I don't think a lot of leaders talk about that enough, especially like the moments and days after an event like that happens.
Yeah. When we started this episode, we mentioned the iceberg, right? That's coming towards enablement. And this might be a difficult question to answer, but is there anything that you could have done or could have done differently to avoid this from happening? Now that's a hard question.
It is a hard question. And look, I think about that, right? And I think that's also part of like the 5 stages of grief.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Like, you can always think about like, I could have built better relationships or played the politics game or, there's a lot of permutations. Again, when I just think about like the quality and the impact of my work and the legacy of my work, that's what I'm really proud about. And I wouldn't have compromised
Yeah.
anywhere in terms of what I focused on, what was built. Uh, just hearing directly from my main customers because it's not like the VPs or the CXOs. It's really the SDRs, the AEs, the
Yeah.
CSMs, and the solution engineers.
Yeah.
So the fact that I've seen an outpouring of outreach from them, post layoff, but also pre-layoff, like just to see the constant validation from them, and of course when you join a new company and you experience whatever onboarding, you feel like it's the best thing in the world and you have to say it's great, but to also see the data and to see like how that actually translated into closed revenue in like months 1, 2, and 3, and you're like, holy crap, how are reps doing this so fast? Like that speaks volumes.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, I'm really proud of that, and I wouldn't have changed anything. Like I'm happy to take ownership of what I've done.
Let me ask you this, and this is actually a topic that Carly and I spoke about in one of our previous episodes when we were saying companies that are going through this restructuring or, making significant headcounts, that we're always saying enablement shouldn't be one of those areas where you look to, decrease your headcount, because when times get tough, those basics have to be right. You need to master the basics, master the process so that you can, when the economy gets better, circumstances are better, come out 10 times stronger. But if you don't have an enablement team, then obviously someone has to pick up the slack, right? So it's going to be maybe the sales managers, team leaders, I don't know, VPs, right? They're going to be taking ownership of a lot of the things that you or someone else has left behind. So what would you tell, or what would your message be to companies out there that are maybe thinking, hey, January's around the corner. We are going to have to make some changes. You shouldn't decrease enablement or get rid of enablement because
the way I perceive enablement is we are agents of change, right? And we're going through a lot of change right now, right? Buyers are taking more time in terms of making informed decisions. Like, in essence, the good times are over. So there's more scrutiny, right? And it's not just coming from like the buyer themselves, it's coming from procurement, it's coming from the CFO, it's coming from other like stakeholders or influencers that are impacting, what purchases are happening and how they're happening, and should this even happen in the first place. Companies are also using this time to think about their org structure, right? So if they're downsizing, that's okay. It needs to happen for the benefit of the business. But that there's also, okay, well, are we still doing the same thing that we're doing, but we're just doing it at a smaller scale? Or do we need to change our process? Do we need to change our motion? Do we need to change our messaging, our playbooks, et cetera? So, if it's like a check mark to all these things, then sales enablement is going to be critical to help capture what those changes are. And again, be like that advocate for the rep. Like, are these changes we have to support, but how do we translate that from a rep perspective so that they can do their new process or their new job effectively as possible, right? So to lose enablement, you're essentially losing that change agent function to drive those new innovations and changes within the org. Then you're depending on your frontline managers, which is not a bad thing either. But I think, in my opinion, the best thing about sales enablement or enablement is, we're not just thinking about it from a process perspective. We're also thinking about it from a tech and tools perspective, from a training perspective, from an onboarding perspective, from a everboarding perspective. All of these different dimensions, we're able to assemble all the things that need to be assembled to make this change happen. And we're going through a lot of change right now. So to lose the one team or the team that can help drive that change effectively, in my opinion, is not a good strategy.
We are all very biased.
We're all very biased.
All very biased, but yeah, all really good points. Okay, so we've gone through the stages of grief. We're like okay with the situation. So what are
Yes.
you working on now?
So what am I working on now? So a few things. So first off, I have my side hustle, which I think
Yes.
is really important to call out. And I would definitely encourage peers that are in sales enablement, but I think also just for anyone in the sales world, right? Whether you're an SDR, account executive, SC, whoever you are, frontline manager, I think it's really important, especially now, to think about what are your skill sets, and is there something you can be doing or want to be doing, in your free time outside of leveraging LinkedIn and other platforms and applying for jobs, and we can talk about that next. And I am obviously applying for roles. This is not the season right now. It's November or December, actually. So we're in the midst of the holiday season. I know things are definitely going to blow up and open up come January. But in the interim, I have my university to keep me busy. I have my kids to keep me busy. I'm also working on a side project where I'm trying to write a book, a sales training book. And of course, there's like a million of them online, but the one I'm working on is specifically focused on young adults. which I have yet to find anywhere. And I think that's really
Yeah.
important. Like if you're in high school or college, I mean, you're constantly selling to someone, like, it's either you're to your professor to get a better grade, or you're trying to raise money for charity, or, you're trying to sell steak knives door to door.
Yes. Fundraise for new jerseys for the
Right.
football team. Yeah,
Right.
all of that good stuff.
So how do you take these sales methodologies, which are really targeted towards sales professionals, and then break it down in such a way that even a high school student can get it? So that's what I'm working on right now, which I'm really excited about. And I'm using a lot of memes, a lot of cursing to really make it as fun
You
and as
haven't done enough on
enjoyable as
this show
possible. Huh?
yet. You haven't done enough on this show yet.
I haven't. All right, fuck. I'll try to do more.
Listen, when we go to upload on YouTube, there's a little section. Is this designed for children? I always mark it as no, so you're good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, I love a side hustle. I mean, this podcast is kind of our side hustle, Malvina. Maybe one day it'll be our cash cow. But so side hustles are a great thing, kind of keep your mind occupied and staying sharp as well while you're in between jobs.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, hold on a
but
second. I'm gonna interview both of you now. If you didn't have your podcast as a side hustle, what would you want your side hustle to be?
Oh, I think we know the answer to that. Oh, I'm
what?
trying to telepathically read you right here. Um,
Well, I guess there's two. I could go two different directions here. I could sit like from a professional perspective, probably like some sort of like enablement consulting or like fractional enablement leadership for like very early stage companies who don't need to hire enablement yet, but probably could benefit from some like formal structure to something, right? Um, but if it wasn't professional and I just had a separate side hustle, probably like a coffee stand. I would say like I would love to have a coffee stand on the Isle of Skye by like the big popular hikes and just like greet hikers when they come on and off the trail and give them coffee and pastries.
Wait,
That
but
would be
I
a fun side
Instant
hustle.
coffee?
you got to.
Obviously, instant coffee, apparently. That's what we're gonna have to go with. Yeah.
Charlie, but I also saw you do knitting. So I'm thinking coffee stand, grab your mittens, grab a scarf, carry on your hike. Do you still do that?
Yes, I do still knit. My mom is the like knitting like
Queen.
queen. She just actually texted me that she sold 40 beanies yesterday. Um, yeah, she like the house is full of beanies. That's like what she knits, and she will knit like for 8 hours a day. It's like her actual job, even though she's retired.
That's
So I'm not
amazing.
that intense on knitting. I like to do it just for fun. So I don't know if I would make it a side hustle, but Malvina, what would yours be?
Yeah, so first of all, if your mom's listening, that sign behind Tom, Hello Hustler, that's for your mom too.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, for me, I would definitely go down the route of an enablement consultancy. I would love to monetize the podcast at some point, but that's right now it's a hobby, I would say, that I definitely enjoy doing. If it wasn't enablement related, I would go down like a totally different route of being a TV host.
Oh my gosh, how fun.
You got the hair and the glasses for it. I can definitely see it.
Welcome to the morning.
You do like voiceover acting.
No, I wouldn't be able to do that. I'm not good at voices. Nas, my husband, is very good at doing voices. Maybe one day I'll ask him to come on.
So a guy I used to work with was actually a professional like voiceover artist,
Yeah.
and that was his side hustle.
Yeah, you can like actually do pretty well. If you got the right setup for it, like there's always like work for people just to like record like a paragraph in an
Yeah.
You
amazing voice and give it to a company, right?
you
If
have
you,
a
if you
very
don't,
radio voice, Tom, as well.
a
Five
radio
years.
voice.
Yeah, you do.
I thought about, I also thought about doing a podcast. I would love to do it. And I wanted to do this with the both of you. Maybe one day when we're in person. You ever watch, Jerry Seinfeld's show.
Coffee
Uh,
and cars with comedians.
yeah,
Is
so
that it?
I would do
Yeah.
something like sales enablement people in bars drinking whiskey.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it would just be like a one-on-one interview at like random bars across New York City and elsewhere. And we're all talking about like our go-to drinks and
I
just
love that. Sounds
drinking and
like
talking about
enablement
enablement.
with alcohol, right?
Enablement
Absolutely
brew.
with
Different
alcohol.
kind of enablement brew for sure.
I love
For
that.
Yeah.
that.
I love that. If you have a margarita, I'm there.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
yeah, I think side hustles I think are a fun thing, and I think it's like it's a healthy way to pursue a different skill set.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about everyone talks about, proving ROI and enablement? How do you prove ROI? How do you measure the success of your programs? How do you measure the success of onboarding? There's so many different components to it. Everyone obviously has a slightly different answer, right? It's correlated with revenue, right? If the sales team is performing, you can't attribute everything towards enablement, but there is a fraction that is attributed to enablement. Over the course of your career, are there any specific nuggets that you would share with our listeners who are maybe starting off in enablement and thinking about this, like end of 2023, how do I prove that I'm actually a value add to the organization?
It's a good question. The way I would answer that is like you definitely want to be best friends with RevOps or know someone on the RevOps team, because if you want to prove it through data, I think that the easiest way to do it, you first of all you want to break it down from onboarding versus everboarding.
Yep.
From the new hire perspective, I think the best thing to focus on is ramp, right? If you can ramp a rep 1 month faster, and you're doing this across 10 reps, 100 reps or more, I mean, that translates into that much more revenue coming into the business faster.
Hmm.
So that's a huge win there. And even let's say you've optimized ramp, let's say to the shortest amount possible, because you can never, I think the goal in a perfect world is to ramp someone where they're fully ramped on day one, but the reality is that's never going to happen. Like it's going
Yeah.
to take some amount of time. And I think if you can identify like, hey, this is the minimum ramp or the ramp that we were able to decrease it to, and we've been leveling off here, like
Yeah.
again, that's a story in itself, right? Because you still need to do a lot of programming to maintain that level of productivity as it relates to ramp, right? And so the argument there is if we're killing sales enablement, how is that going to impact ramp for any future new hires you're planning to make, right?
Yeah.
Because it's only going to go above that, and that's going to be a cost to the business, right? Don't
Hmm.
assume you're going to be able to maintain that level. On the everboarding side, there's a lot of different dimensions to look at, right? So, in my experience, like this past year, we were able to launch 2 new products to market, or actually 3 new products to market. From that perspective, it's essentially how did you train all the reps to learn this product, to learn the new ICPs, the personas that they have to be targeting, the territories that needed to be built out. How much traction did we get in terms of generating pipeline, generating closed revenue? What were the lessons or wins that we learned from that? What are the specific other types of content that we may have created from a sales enablement perspective, along with product marketing, et cetera, to lift that up. Despite what's going on with the economy, I'm sure a lot of companies are still thinking about or having plans to launch, let's say, a new product or a new offering in 2023 and beyond. You probably need sales enablement to help execute on that, right?
Yeah.
Um, because it's not just, hey, here's the marketing collateral, here's the personas, go forth and sell. No, you need to build out the cadences in your cadence platform. You need to work with the reps on objection handling. You need to run maybe pitch training, and that's what I love doing. So I would get like teams like as a pod and we would just focus on the fundamentals for an hour. And you'd be surprised, like a year or two later, how reps are still, let's say, not doing the best that they can be on your basic core product pitch. And that's where doing that everboarding and those drills just over and over and over again across those reps has an impact. You may not be able to quantify it, but at least to be able to share a report with leadership to say like, hey, in the month of December, I ran these trainings and as a result delivered these many hours of training across these many reps. Here are the reps I've identified that are strong. Here are the reps that I identified that have coaching. And here are the reps I identified that are just still not getting it. And, I'm raising a red flag. Like that adds value. And you're able to do it from a neutral perspective where, as a frontline manager, it's really hard to be neutral because you clearly may have a bias, with the direct reports you're working with, and you just may not see it because you're working with them so closely day in and day out.
Yeah.
To have someone external to your team come in and provide that on-demand assessment adds incredible value. So that's how I would position it. I don't know if that answers your question, Malvina, or if you have a different perspective.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. It definitely does. I think you have to look at ROI and the value of enablement. Yes, big picture is definitely important, and what happens at the end of the quarter is definitely important. What happens at the end of the year also, but it's also those small increments, right? Those small successes, those small results, and those small wins. And ultimately, it's the small wins that get you that big win, right? At the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you are an enablement person and you don't know what your average deal size is and your time to first sale, you need to find those metrics now, become best friends with someone in RevOps, and you can figure it out, and then track how the time to first sale improves with your onboarding program. And then you can say, yeah, these 10 people had a reduction in time to first sale and sold this many more deals in the time it took previous reps to sell one deal. And at that average deal size, and you keep doing this, like Tom said, it can really be a meaningful amount of revenue. And that's something that I don't think enablement, we're really that good at telling that story yet of like, hey, our onboarding program has resulted in $500,000 more revenue this year by simply reducing ramp time by 2 weeks for the last 20 hires or whatever it is, right? So those are the things that you guys should definitely go hang out with your RevOps team and figure out.
Yeah. By the way, just
Tom,
to add to that, sorry,
yes,
there's the other side of the equation too. And I think it's going to be more important in 2023 than ever before, which is customer success. So
yes,
especially in SaaS,
retaining customers. Yeah.
right? Uh, and look, it's sales cycles are extending out. Customers want more discounts. So you're going to see your average deal sizes decrease to getting those deals in. Like things are getting harder in terms of closing new deals, and that's just going to be the new reality for a while. But
Mm-hmm.
what you can control and what you should be more on top of is all of your existing customers. And especially in SaaS or in a recurring revenue type of business model, sales enablement or revenue enablement is going to be a critical partner in crime in terms of working with CSMs, working with the AEs and leadership in terms of developing programs and strategies, not only to retain all of the existing customers you brought in over the years, but how do we also grow and upsell them? Because if they start churning, and they will, you're only creating that much more work or that much more of a negative impact to your business.
Yeah.
And it's
And
so much more expensive to replace that revenue.
Yeah,
Uh, so yeah, you got to maintain it as much as you can.
right.
And it's interesting to see how many companies, might have an incredible sales process, right? Like you're so amazed by this AE, so well prepared, sends you a nice follow-up, comes prepared with an agenda, tells me things I don't yet know that I should probably think about and consider. say yes, we sign on the dotted line. And then like the implementation phase happens, and I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? Like, is
Yep.
this the same company?
Yep.
This is what I signed up for? That's not what I thought I was really getting, right? And it's
Yeah.
how to make that entire journey seamless. I think some companies have aced it. There's still a lot of work to be done. So that entire process feels like I'm glad I made this decision, and it was definitely, the right decision based on the level of support and
Yeah.
care I'm getting. Like that aftercare, so important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what you're talking about is buyer's remorse, right? We all feel it. We all return crap back to Amazon. We're all guilty of that. And that's because of buyer's remorse, right? We bought this, we for whatever reason we didn't like it, we regretted it, and we returned it. And it's the same in the B2B world, right? So it's not just the time to first impact, but what is that recurring impact,
Yep.
over that year or the length of that contract. Because if they're seeing recurring impact, then you're making it really easy for them to renew. But if they are not, then you're making it easy for them to churn.
Return. Yeah.
And it's hard to capture like recurring impact, but again, that's where sales enablement can pivot, focusing more of their time and energy not only on everboarding, but on customer success enablement in particular, because that's where I predict most of the companies are going to be growing their revenue in 2023 and beyond. The majority of it will come from existing customers versus new logos.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think that is a wrap for today's episode. We talked about loads of good things here in terms of what happens if you are getting laid off, but also like what's the future of enablement look like and how can we hopefully prevent ourselves from being on the wrong side of a layoff. But Tom, it was really great to have you on the show. I'm so glad we finally got to do this. Tom and I have done plenty of panels together, and we only talked about onboarding just a little bit this time. We always find ourselves having to talk about onboarding on panels together. So I'm glad we could talk about something different this time.
Yeah. No, look, I appreciate coming on. I know this is an awkward topic, but I think it's worth talking about because
Yeah.
it's not just enablement, it's a lot of different functions across, more than just sales that are being impacted by this. And unfortunately, this is like the trend or the theme, at the end of this year. And I maybe I'm speaking on behalf of Malvina and Carly, but at least for myself, if there's anyone out there impacted by a layoff and I can help in terms of
Yep.
reviewing your resume, giving you feedback, just wanting someone to talk to, maybe you need help just buying presents for your kids, just ping me. I'm in a good situation, so happy to help out in any which way.
Love
Thank you
that.
so much, and thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.